Dropping gems from Keisha Christian. She's on a mission, sharing information, knowledge for soul, body and mind. Dropping gems, KeishaGems.com. KeishaGems.com.
Welcome to episode 6 of Just Dropping Gemz podcast. My name is Keisha Christian, holistic lifestyle coach, author, and owner of Keisha's Gems LLC. This episode is sponsored by #Pure Romance by Venice. Venice Richards, your pure romance consultant, inspires women to enhance their intimate lives and take care of their sexual health. Book your party with her today. All the information is in the show notes or description box below. My co-host on this episode, entitled The Power of Forgiveness for Emotional and Spiritual Healing, is mental health practitioner Feona Charles Richards. She is a clinical psychology doctoral candidate and mental health practitioner from Antigua and Barbuda, West Indies. Welcome to the show, Feona. So excited to have you on as my co-host today.
Thanks for having me, Keisha.
Yes, and I have to tell everyone, this is my lovely cousin. We are family. And I'm so excited to have her on because she has helped me so much. She has no idea what she has done for my life. I don't think you understand. So It's just an honor for me. It's a big honor for you to decide to do this with me. And I'm so grateful for that. So I just have to let the world know. This is my family, my beautiful cousin. And her
Thanks for
beautiful
having
smile. Me, So today this is actually a 2-part series. Today we're going to be focusing on emotional healing and the importance of that when maintaining your mental health. As I have been constantly saying that when we're dealing with holistic living, it definitely has to deal with your mind, body, and spirit. So you need to, in order to live the most optimal, healthy life, you need to check in with your mental health. So today I should say, we're going to be talking about emotional healing and things you could do to help with healing yourself emotionally. Something for us to look at. We're going to be talking about different techniques and strategies that you could use, and all of that will be down in the show notes. So if you want to check out where to go, what websites, the links, I'll provide all of that for you in the show notes. Now, my cousin, or I should say Feona, or the future Dr. Feona Charles, she has visited several Caribbean islands teaching certain techniques and strategies to help people with emotional healing. And I asked her to come on as my co-host to discuss some of these strategies. So Fiona?
Hi.
Hi, the floor is all yours.
All right. Once again, thanks for having me. Thank you for this opportunity. Anything that has to do with talking about mental health, I see it as a grand opportunity to help others. When we talk about the whole idea of mental health, I think people think that the whole stigma that's attached to it is disconcerting, because people think that if we talk about mental health, it means that I'm crazy. And that's a language that I really don't like. So I'm hoping that by getting these type of messages out, that we'll have less people using that terminology, because when we think about mental health can stem from anywhere from having depression or anxiety to having a neurological developmental disorder, because all those are classified as follow within the DSM as mental health challenges. And so persons need to be more aware and more conscious of what it means to have a challenge and not simply see it as being crazy. Mental illness looks at anything that is disruptive to your normal day of functioning, in terms of anything that distracts you from being able to enjoy now I mean, like when we think, sometimes persons get caught up in thinking about the future, and it makes them extremely anxious to the point where they can't eat, or they can't sleep, or they can't even do their regular chores or interact with their friends as they used to. That is when it's not just having that little worry about tomorrow, but it's now gone into something different. And so that is when we look at the whole idea of what mental illness or mental health challenges are.
It's kind of like we're now taking the stigma away from it.
Yes, we must take the stigma away, because with the stigma we also see that a lot of persons do not seek help. And if we look at the global statistics, we see that there are over 200 million people living with some sort of mental health challenge.
Yes.
Right? And depression is one of the highest numbers of mental health challenges within the world, and it contributes a lot to suicides, because persons are not sure, how do I go about and say that, hey, I wake up and I still feel tired, or I don't have any appetite, or I don't sleep well at night, or I don't enjoy doing the things I used to like to do. And for some persons, some people might say, oh, I just feel depressed today. But it's so much more than just feeling depressed. It's when it's ongoing. Yeah. When that has gone on for several days, into weeks, into months, it's no longer just having a feeling of being down today. It's more than just that. And so once we remove the stigma, then we can have more people seeking help and the various services within their areas, so that we can have persons enjoying the life that they were intended to have.
Exactly. So while you were you mentioned, when we were having our conversation a little earlier, you mentioned that there are 2 islands in the Caribbean that you visited, and you taught them, you taught the attendees to the workshops, because I did notice that you had some workshops that
Yes, I had some locally here in Antigua. I had one in Barbuda, and I had 2 in Anguilla between 2016 and in 2018. So my first trip in Anguilla was right after we had a hurricane, and it was a psychosocial support. And so we dealt with some of those strategies the first time. And then the next time we were looking at the whole idea of the self, and we look at the group dynamics, and then we realized that in order for us to function every day with people, there's things that are within us, things that happened when we were 5 years old, things that happened to us when we were growing up, the names people called us, the stuff that we were carrying because maybe our dad or our mom didn't want us, or we were abused. And a lot of those things we as African Caribbean, African American people,
we hold on to so much stuff. Yeah,
and we have a habit of saying, "Oh, me don't forget about that."
Yes. Oh, I forgot about it. It's no big deal.
It's no big deal. And the truth and fact of the matter is, we've just ignored it. We have just pushed it down. Exactly. And so you find that those things are shaping us, and they're festering in us. They're affecting how we relate in our intimate relationships, in our friendships, with our relationships with our children, with our colleagues, exactly. how we just go forward with life. And it's just that stuff, that we carry around, not realizing that we haven't really dealt with it. We haven't really forgiven the past. We've just kind of ignored it. It's something that we're good at doing, because what does it mean?
We were taught, though, but because our parents probably were going through the same thing. So it's generational. I'm even thinking about post-slavery, the things that those people dealt with, or, our ancestors dealt with, and now it's passed down into now our generation, and now we're dealing with it.
Yeah, because let's even think about the whole idea of gender relations. Let's think about that even for a minute. The whole idea of men are supposed to be strong. men are not supposed to show emotion. So can you imagine a man saying that I'm going to go get some help?
No, that's why they probably don't go to the doctor.
And so you find that, I mean, like, I'm sure the number of women to men is the same in relations to having mental health challenges. It's just that men don't go forward enough to say that there's something, I'm dealing with something and I can't cope with this. And so what you find happen is that, and it's sad, because whereas a woman will be likely to attempt suicide, a man is more likely to commit suicide. Yes.
And they tend to be more, their strategy for suicide tends to be more violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, more so than the woman. Women will most likely take pills or whatever, but a man will actually
hang himself.
Yeah.
Take a gun, put it to his head. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
And as you said, those are things that you see coming down throughout the varying histories of our people.
Definitely. So what are some strategies or techniques that we could use to help us with emotional healing?
First is the whole idea of acknowledging that everything is not okay. I think that is so important for us to acknowledge first and foremost that that I'm angry all the time, that I'm sad all the time, that my relationships are ending constantly, and recognize that there is something not quite right. And so I think that that's the first step is acknowledging that something needs some work. I think everybody has had something difficult happen in their life that they haven't dealt with, and not really looked at it as possibly the root cause of some of their issues. And so, yes, the first thing is acknowledging. Because once we have acknowledged that something is not quite right, then we can have that honest conversation about what's wrong. And when we have identified what's wrong, or the things that we've thought about ourselves, or the things that we have internalized, sometimes you're walking around with even other people's stuff, in terms of the rejection that a person may have felt from their dad or their mom. Maybe the dad or mom left them on somebody's doorstep or neglected them or was abusive. It's possibly because they too were broken and they had no idea how to love.
Yeah.
So when we acknowledge, first we acknowledge, then we recognize that, there are things that we need to work on, and that we're maybe even walking around with other people's things, their stuff, and start identifying, how do I think about myself? How do I feel about myself? I remember even having a client one time who could not say, I love you to herself.
Yeah, but she didn't, because she probably didn't learn how to love herself. So she had to learn that all over again.
And so she thought she had such a hard time, Keisha. She said, no, this is not my job. The job, that's somebody else's job to love me. When it was really her job to love herself first, and so we have to recognize that anything that happens in our life first begin with us. So we acknowledge, then we identify the different areas in our lives. And then once we have identified the things that we have taught about ourselves, think about ourselves, feel over the years, made to feel over the years, those things are important. Because I remember being made to feel that as if something was wrong with me for a very long time, when I was younger, before I really got into the idea of psychology, because I had a dad who really didn't want me, until I started doing well in the world, and then he goes, oh, that's my daughter. I had friends who used to just leave. And then I recognized it really wasn't their problem. It was mine. It was how I viewed myself because of the external situations.
Isn't it amazing how perception, once you change your perception about something, life has such a different outlook?
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
So we acknowledge and we identify. And once we have identified, then we have to be willing to release.
Exactly.
And release comes through it was something I was taught in my psychology trainings. And it was by one of my mentors, and she's also an NLP and an MER practitioner. And she used to say that, when we start feeling ourselves getting angry about something somebody did, in our mind, we have to shift our unconscious. And we have to change our unconscious to saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And I was curious to find out, what is this thing that I was supposed to be saying?
Can you repeat that again?
I love you.
I love you.
Please forgive me, and thank you.
And thank you.
Yeah. So I was curious to find out what was this thing she had us saying constantly, when we started feeling ourselves become angry because of something somebody else was doing. And I discovered that it was a Hawaiian tradition. It was a Hawaiian healing ritual called the Ho'oponopono. And I have adopted it as part of something that I do with my clients and something I do in my seminars and my trainings with people when they're trying to deal with things, but not recognizing that they must first acknowledge and identify those things within themselves first. And so when we would have identified all of the things, like, so sometimes you might find people say, I don't think I'm beautiful, I'm not lovable, I am worthless. What that ritual does is recognize that all those things that you were saying about yourself has created a negative perception of how you view the world and the people you interact with.
Can you repeat the technique again? The Hawaiian technique that you mentioned? Repeat it again, please.
It's called the Ho'oponopono.
Okay.
And it has 4 steps, 4 short phrases, and it's I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. Because the whole idea is that when we say I love you and you're saying I love you, it's I love you, as in me talking to myself in a reflective manner that I am worthy of love. I am awesome. I am worthy. And because I'm all those things, I have to love me.
You know what I see? I could actually see someone doing this standing in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
That's how you do the exercise, standing in front of the mirror?
What I normally do is that sometimes I incorporate it with other things depending on what the person is dealing with. So depending on what the person is dealing with, when they're dealing with like sexual trauma, the approach has to be a little different. Because they have, and that's the other part that we'll talk about, and we can combine them again when we speak about the other the 2 part in the second part.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna look at the different types of, how trauma can impact you and what you can do to release that first aspect of it. But for persons who are working on self-esteem, definitely they can look at the mirror and do that. Well, in the Caribbean, half the things sometimes we're very short on resources. So you get creative, you get creative. Yeah. And but what sometimes I even do with some of the clients when they're doing this is that I play some Zen meditation music.
Nice.
Right. And Have them slow their breathing as they say it, and they're going to say it until they feel that release. So it's not something that, so you're actually thinking about those things that you would have thought about yourself, you would have viewed yourself for a while, and you're slowly allowing yourself to say those words for the first time to yourself like you never have before, and truly feel the power of what it means to say I love you to yourself.
Yes. That is really powerful. Now that I'm sitting in here and I'm listening to you. It's when we are going through emotional healing, one of the things we need to do is look at self and realize that you are enough. You are worthy, right? You are important. You belong. And actually, this was something I used to do with my students. I never did this technique, but as an educator, my cousin was an educator as well. She's just so smart. I just love her. Anyway, so as an educator, one of the things I did was I used to do mantras with my students. So I'm thinking about, this is like a sort of mantra by saying, I love you, forgive me. I'm
yes, and you have to allow yourself. And then after you'd have said I love you, you really have to allow yourself to forgive yourself for the fact that you've taken on the burden of something that wasn't even yours to carry in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
And so for the parents who are listening, you have to be so aware of what you say when you're angry, what you do when you're not having a good day, what you say when you yourself are dealing with your own emotional stuff around your children, because they're often internalizing what they hear. Like, I passed one test, but I didn't pass it enough. And instead of saying, good job, and just celebrate for that moment, and then maybe the day after and said, you did good on that test, but I know you can do better, so let's see how we can work on that, as opposed to, oh, so what am I wasting my money for? And a lot of times,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, say you get a 98, instead of saying, oh, you did a great job. Oh, where's the other 2 points?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, and I think that people forget that their child is starting to wonder, am I ever going to be good enough?
Yes, exactly.
And I struggle with that, how our family is, Keisha.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because I know about the Caribbean parents.
You know how our family is. And I remember being compared a lot.
Me too. I know what you're talking about. Me too.
Like, so-and-so, going to this school. Oh, she got into the this, and I'm like thinking, okay, can you shut up already? In my head. But to say that to our elders going to meet up, we
couldn't say that.
You're obnoxious or something to that extent.
Feet under.
And in the Caribbean, there's no rule about getting spanked.
Although now I see that they're getting better because we are becoming more enlightened in certain.
Yes, they are getting better. And so, for a while, I was like, there were times when I was so focused on doing as good as opposed to just doing my own thing, and so, parents have to be very careful. But for those persons who have grown up thinking that they weren't enough, the whole idea of forgiving yourself for taking on somebody else's insecurity. Because I think our parents, in their loving but unclear view, they wanted good things for us, but it wasn't the right message.
Yeah, they wanted the best for us, and I mean, and in my parents' defense, they did the best they could. So now, in retrospect, when they look back, I'm sure they probably say, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that," or "I shouldn't." You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, but for those persons who've grown up thinking, because of what their parents did or how they dealt with them, they may have thought for a long time, I'm not worthy. I'm never going to amount to anything. I can't do this and I can't do that. And so it's important for us to now forgive ourselves for even thinking for a moment that somebody else's opinion, no matter who it was the all in all.
Exactly. And I have to say, I've gone through that, feeling though I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. I felt like that for many years. And it's not until like I started to realize and started doing mantras and realizing, I am enough. I am smart. I am worthy. And when I started doing these mantras, and like I said, I started doing it with my students, my perception had changed. And I noticed the energy people had towards me changed as well, because it's what I was attracting to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we have to allow ourselves to forgive. And so, in that part where it says, I forgive you. I forgive you, Feona, for thinking so small of yourself. I forgive you for thinking that you were unworthy and that you were not perfectly and wonderfully made just the way you are. I forgive you for thinking that you were ever a failure. And so those are some of the things that happen when you're going through that whole idea of when you say, I forgive you.
Yes.
Right? And then we go into I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry.
I didn't think I was worthy. Yes, I could see that.
I'm so sorry. Girl, you're gorgeous. I'm so sorry for making you think that you were not. And thank you, because at the end of the day, you have learned, you have grown, you have recognized who you are, and just to allow yourself to go through this process. You have to thank yourself for allowing yourself to be open to the healing, to be open to the lesson. And even just to think about after we would have worked on ourselves, we now have to think about the persons who would have put in these things that we are still having challenges talking to. We're still having, that feeling, that tension when we think about them. We also have to give them that, we have to release them out of our spirit. So now that we would have released our thoughts about ourselves, we have to release the person. And, when you think about all the negative things that they were saying, I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, meaning that it's really not about the whole idea of, oh, why do I need to say sorry to somebody who has abused me or has said all these negative things about me? I'm sorry that you did not see me. You took advantage of me. I'm sorry that you were not strong enough to recognize who I was. I am so sorry that whatever happened in your life, that you thought that I should have lived in the shadow of your pain.
Yeah. They didn't see your greatness. That's what I'm thinking as you're speaking, because they probably were looking down at themselves. And so because they couldn't see the greatness in them, they couldn't see it in you. Because I do believe we are reflections of each other.
Yeah, because hurt people hurt people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hurt people hurt people. It's cliche to most people, but it's so true. Because only people who are carrying around hurts and insecurities put them and project them onto others.
Yes.
In an effort to feel strong within themselves, in an effort to gain some control over their own lives.
Yes.
Right? And so, you have to, and then you go, I forgive you. And when you say, I forgive you, yes, Yes, I forgive you for all the stuff you made me carry that had nothing to do with me.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I forgive you for everything that you have done to hurt me and make me not see myself. And I'm thankful for the lesson that my interaction, however painful it was, has taught me. Because I mean, like, if we look at both of us, when I look at my life, there is no way, Keisha, that I would have been this person if it had not been for my story, if it had not been for the things that I have gone through, if I wasn't the girl who was rejected by her father for over 18 years. I mean, like, when people look at me and say, I remember giving a presentation to some boys in what we call, what you guys call juvenile hall.
Yeah.
And one said to me, oh, you up there with your fancy degree and talking all this stuff and whatever. But what do you know about struggle?
He said that to the wrong person.
He said that to the wrong person. So you know your cousin broke out in the Antiguan dialect and start
I know that.
one thing. I said to him, boss, I know what it means to go to bed hungry. I know what it means to only be able to eat what you have. I know what it means to go a week during university, even without any money and any food. I know what it means to eat roast sweet potato, and that was it for the night, while you smell like the person doing barbecue and whatever down the street. I mean, like, I remember my grandmother waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the market. And I mean, like, now when I see her with her arthritis, I know it's because of all that stuff that she had to do just to ensure that my granddaughter isn't going to come out like me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, you know, I had to say that. I said, I know what it means not to have a dad and to have a man who lives right next to my school walk in and out every day past my school and never ask how my daughter is doing. I know what it felt like to have a mother who was so angry with this man that she looked at her daughter and saw him and she just lashed out in anger every time she saw me. And she thought that, God, this picnic that I give me that looked like people for. And like, yeah. And it's amazing because when I hit 21, I started looking like my mother. It was weird, but at the same time, you know, I believe that everything is purposed. Even our pain is purposed.
Yes.
And I know it's hard to hear people to hear that.
Yeah, but we going through these things for a lesson. I really believe certain things we go through in life is to teach.
Yeah.
We go through something so it can make it easier for someone else. I really do believe that. And that's why I started this. I wanted to drop gems. I wanted to discuss certain things to help people have a better quality of life.
Yeah.
And so have the struggle.
Yeah. And so at the end of the Ho'oponopono, when persons would have, you know, slow their breaths and done the exercise, when they actually start feeling that release, what I ask them to do, well, I mean, like, in my seminars, we actually burn the old thoughts, the old feelings.
So they write it down on a piece of paper and then they burn it. Okay.
And then we burn it as we actually say the ritual one more time. So as soon as you would have said it one more time, you actually light the fire and just watch the thoughts just go in an actual physiological aspect of the release. Well, in my office, since I can't burn anything, I normally use a shredder. So I have them shredded, you know, and so far for the ones who've been able to go through the process, they have, I must say, most of the times they've said, you know, I didn't expect to feel this good this quickly. You know, and so sometimes you have to recognize that we're carrying around so much garbage, so much baggage, so much of our stuff and other people's stuff that we've taken on, that it is very important for our mental health for us to release. And if sometimes that even means releasing it daily, you know, that's important. That is so important. I mean, it might seem, and so you have to carve out some of that time when you realize that, you know, there's some thoughts that you're struggling with today, or some things that you feel about yourself, that it's very important to, again, acknowledge that it's there, identify exactly what it is those thoughts are, and be willing to go through that process of releasing those thoughts.
Exactly.
Releasing that emotion, because when it stays, it's harmful. And if it stays and we allow it to fester, I mean, it changes who we are.
Not only that, what I'm thinking though too, that when those things fester, it could turn into disease. When we talk about cancer.
Oh, I was just about to get to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because when I say it changes who we are, it's not even just a communication, but what we call it psychosomatic symptoms. So you getting headaches that you ain't know where they coming from, and it's because of all that stuff that you carrying. You have hypertension, you have diabetes, and all of those things are coming from unforgiveness. And as you so rightly said, the whole idea of cancer and other diseases in our bodies are coming from a lot of the emotional things that we're carrying around in our body because we haven't released them. It creates a toxic.
Exactly. And that's why I said dis-ease. Your body's not at homeostasis. It's at dis-ease. It's not at ease.
Yeah.
You're holding on to so much things. That's toxic.
Yep.
Very toxic.
So you know, it is very important for us to really go through that process on a daily basis. I find that at the end of every day, because my work deals with, I see trauma almost every day. And not only trauma, but it's a very tense working environment. And so every day I go through that process of letting go.
No, you actually have to do it yourself. I
actually have to do it myself because, as I said, I mean, I don't want to be bringing home that stuff to my husband. No. Remember, I'm saying that it's not just even, it's, you know, and you want to be able to enjoy the rest of your evening. And by ignoring it, it comes back up the next day. You ignore it the next day, it comes back up even stronger the next day.
Or years from now.
Yeah. So, I mean, what life is that?
Exactly.
What life is that? You know, walking around anger, bitter, and sick.
Exactly.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Well, Feona, I'm going to end on this note. And our next episode, part 2 of this series, we're going to be discussing spiritual and mental healing. And there'll be some other techniques that we'll be talking about as well. Yes, so, Feona, I thank you so much for joining me on this episode. And to everyone, I wish you well. Check out the next episode in part 2 of this series, Spiritual Mental Healing. Peace and blessings to you. So much for listening to Just Dropping Gemz podcast. This episode is sponsored by #Pure Romance by Venice. Venice Richards, your pure romance consultant, inspires women to enhance their intimate lives and take care of their sexual health. Book your party with her today. Info in the show notes or description box below. It is also sponsored by Keisha's Gems and Dropping Gemz Publishing. Be sure to visit our website where we offer holistic solutions with the soul in mind. And check out my new book, Healthy Gems, Nourishing Practices and Self-Care Tips for Busy Individuals. Available on Amazon or purchase an autographed copy on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at www.droppinggemz.com. That's DROPPINGGEMZ.com. If you are interested in being a sponsor or advertising on this podcast, you can contact us at www.keishagemz.com. That's KEISHAGEMZ.com. Or email us at KEISHAGEMZ@gmail.com. Much abundance to you. Peace and blessings.